Hi,
Hello,
I'm Julian.
I'm Tom Prime.
We are Team Binge. We are here to talk about Dark Matter, Episode 4. And since when did you start calling yourself Tom Prime? That seems new.
Last pod, I think I started it. I
Okay.
just want you to know that I am the one from this multiverse.
I don't believe you. You shouldn't have to tell me that. I should just know that. So, and also the fact that I didn't catch it next episode makes me think that I don't shoot down enough of your bad ideas. So,
That's true.
let's dive into this episode. It's called The Corridor. And just to make sure everyone knows, at this point we've watched 4 and 5, but for this pod, we're just going to talk about 4. If something slips into our conscious mind and creates a world that involved episode 5, we apologize. But they're both out at this point anyway. So, Tom, cliffhanger of the last one was Amanda and teacher Jason, the original, the OG Jason. They are in the box, mind is expanded, and it turns out to be one long hallway. Ooh, as a guy that loves hallways and loves how hallways are structured and what hallways lead to and the doors that touch hallways, how did you feel going into this one?
I felt good. I like how they did it as just one long corridor. I felt like at one point they looked at the ceiling and there were doors up there. Do I have that wrong? I'm like, how do you access a door that's up there? But cool visual, and I liked where it left, and I liked this episode in general. I thought it gave us the idea that you can go and do a multiverse thing. It can definitely go off the rails very quickly, and I like how they explore the multiverse a little bit. They didn't get too wild with it, and they didn't leave. There's still loads of questions in the show, but they did a good job, I think, of answering a handful of stuff in this episode that made me feel better about how we're going to proceed through the rest of the series.
Sure, sure. I cannot confirm that there's doors on the ceiling. I don't think so. Because the whole point, I think it's explained in this episode, they're like, oh, this is the conscious mind trying to like make a visual representation of what we're doing by going into these worlds. And so it's just a bunch of doors. Tom, if your conscious mind or unconscious mind, I should say, subconscious mind, who knows? There's a lot of conscious minds. We're going to create a visual. Like, what would you be choosing from? Would it be like boats in the harbor? Would it be video game cartridges on a shelf? You're just like, oh, I would like to play this one today. Would it be VHS cassettes that are labeled randomly? What would you be choosing in order to choose your world? Because I know it's not doors.
No, I'm quite certain it would just be a massive wall of Lego pieces, and then you like pick a color or you pick a type to like finish some Lego build, and then that would transport you to another multiverse.
That tracks. And then you'd get frustrated and you'd knock them on the floor, and then your world is just stepping on Legos barefoot for a long time.
Yeah, that's pretty much my world. Yeah. How about you?
Nice.
What's your corridor? What's your liminal space?
Probably just handguns, different handgun, shoot it in the air, sends me to a different world. I don't know. It's
a box pop.
It's a box pop. All right. We also have at the beginning of this episode, Leighton decides to follow. He like grabs a bag and he's like, I've got nothing left for me in this world anymore, which seemed really drastic. I felt like things were going pretty well for Leighton. Am I wrong? Is Leighton not like a millionaire at the top of the world?
I mean, he's a leader of this mega corporation, but I think he feels the pressure of the Chicago PD kind of coming down on him. The fact that he says he has no family, raised by his grandpa that's gone. I don't know if he has that in the back of his mind. Maybe it's in his subconscious that he might be able to see a different version of his world, and maybe that's what kind of brings him in. But yeah, I tend to agree that to say he's got nothing in his world, he probably has some other friends outside of work, right?
Well, I mean, friends, you can find them in these new worlds, Tom. You don't need old friends when you can find old friends in new worlds. I think that's a song, a famous pop song.
A whole new world, yeah.
What if he like grabbed a knapsack and it was just like a thermos and some PB&Js and he's like, I've got nothing to live for. And instead of going into the box, he just like leaves the office and he's just like, I'm kind of done with this. Anyways, I find that the Leighton character is getting more and more interesting for me, and I think you pointed out the importance of like his grandfather's picture and the history and how that's going to come into play. And so I like how they're slow rolling his character and making him important.
And we'll get to it later, but like the multiverse version of him, where that actor just plays a completely different version of Leighton, I thought was awesome.
Right. All right, we're back with Amanda and teacher Jason, and as scientists do, because we know that Jason is a man of science, they just randomly start opening doors, which they do a thing where they run randomly at great distance one direction. They throw out like, hey, we've gone like 220 doors, but they're not really like marking doors. They certainly didn't keep track of the door they came out of, which it just feels like to me this is like that Minotaur labyrinth in the old Greek myth where you like put a piece of yarn out and you can get back by unspooling the yarn. Obviously, everyone keeps a pocket full of yarn with them at all times, but I felt like this was reckless, to say the least, just to run and start trying doors.
Well, I think they were just trying to make, like he mentions, like their mind is trying to make sense of this, and I think it doesn't necessarily exist, but the idea of these doors allows their mind to wrap around it. But we do find out, I think, a little bit later that they can open the same door while they're kind of on their drug trip, and it will be the same place. But I think once they essentially exit this box and go back in, I'd imagine all the doors reset, or the string would be recoiled, or whatever you want to do.
Sure.
I thought they were going to use her fingers, right? Dawn's fingers did not come into play.
No, they didn't come to play as a good door stopper at all. There's still time, though. They probably haven't completely gone away. Yeah. Does this sound like on a Friday night, if you got to go to a puzzle room location and this was one of the puzzle rooms, would you join this?
Oh, I don't know if I'd ever get out. I don't know if there's much puzzle to solve.
It's honestly, Velocity should just be a puzzle room company, and they're like, it's all gone horribly wrong. We put these people in the box, they disappeared, we're being sued. It was a 13-year-old's birthday party. We've lost a lot of kids. Like, what if they go in on the building, it says Velocity, and underneath it just says escape room? Like, that would be pretty great. Maybe that's the twist of this whole show. We'll never know. Okay, so we see some cool worlds. Did you get, and I know our whole audience has not watched it, but did you get some Three Body Problem vibes out of this? Like all the different worlds, and I don't know, maybe it's just because it's heavy CGI, but there's some stuff that had to do with the sun in different places, which is a celestial body. And so, I don't know. There's like destroyed buildings, there's Chicago in a rough space. Once again, it can't express the recklessness of just being like, hey, this world looks like it's falling apart. Let's explore it. Be like, no, let's go back in the box. Like, back in the box,
well,
please.
I think the very first one they go out of, it's like, this post-apocalyptic Chicago, and buildings are falling in the background. They're running around. I almost felt like half of it was like a trailer bait with all these big, massive buildings falling down. I think I watched it in the trailer, so I kind of knew that they were going to explore the multiverse a bit. But yeah, I tend to agree. I would explore a little bit, but I wouldn't explore that far. Because what are you going to get from this world? Not a whole lot.
Everyone, he's like, oh, I want to see what my house looks like in this world. And she's like, I'm pretty sure your house is dust. And he's like, well, maybe there's a photo of us by Yellowstone in there, you know? And,
important stuff.
Yeah. The other thing I had the thought of is, instead of sprinting down the hallway as far and randomly choosing doors, I don't understand how this works, even though we're farther in the series. But you'd think, like, you'd try the door next to yours, because logically it would be like the lesser difference in worlds would be closer doors. At least that's how my brain would work. Also, what choice did Jason make in his life that caused Chicago to crumble? Like, he insulted deep dish Chicago-style pizza, and then the world, like, collapsed? What choice made that world? But I guess we kind of figure out later in the episode that it's not... Once again, I'm thinking of timelines and choices within, like, future, but this is more of a mental game. And that's why I'm losing at this mental game.
Yeah. Well, the idea, and we'll get to it here, of them figuring out how they can potentially traverse worlds is kind of cool, because I think this episode particularly is beneficial for a rewatch. Because, like, now when they open up doors, you kind of get a sense for, like, what were they thinking, what was in their subconscious, what potentially created some of these worlds as they opened it. So as we get there in the outline, I'll go through my thoughts as to how these worlds appeared.
So the first one you open up is just Chicago made of Legos. Right?
Lego. Yeah.
Lego. Oh, golly. All right, whatever. And then if I opened one up, it's just Chicago made of gummy bears. And I'm like,
And
oh,
guns.
let me get go. Hey, gummy bears first, then guns. There's
Okay.
there's
an
two
order.
G's in my life. Wait, there's three G's in my life. One, obviously, gummy bears. Two, guns. Three, God. There you go. The three G's in my life. Gummy. Do those all start with G? I think so.
Yeah,
Anyways,
you nailed it.
checks out. All right. We cut to Tech Jason and Charlie doing a little father-son driving lesson. We find out that it's a birthday. As anyone does on their 16th birthday, you have to run a red light. Did you run a red light on your 16th birthday?
No, not a red light. A couple yellows, but not red.
Oh, I ran a red light with like the whole family in the car. Like I
Goodness.
just gotten my license, and it was one of those things where it changed yellow, and you have no concept of space when you're 16 and you haven't run enough red lights to know. And I just blew through that sucker. I still think about it. In fact, I'm getting cold sweats. But to my parents' credit, they did not scream at me or ground me. We did have a family meeting. Anyways,
I'm glad you're still here.
Yeah. Okay, so and we've got this former twin brother Max, and all this stuff is hinted at, and we can kind of dive into this now.
Yeah.
We find out that this is a twin of Charlie's that was sick and passed away, right? And so they celebrate his life on their birthday, which is a rough go, I think. For
Oh, yeah.
Charlie.
You think about being a twin, right? And like not being able to really celebrate your birthday because you're always thinking about like your twin that had kind of passed away. And I think we saw from that picture, like Max just didn't necessarily die at childbirth. Like he was, I don't know, 6, 7. I don't know how old he
Yeah, I
eventually
don't think
got.
they give us an
mention,
age, but they do mention several surgeries and that he was a fighter, and that was just rough. Just
yeah,
rough.
for sure.
Because we also, in this episode, we get that conversation with Jason and Amanda talking about it, right?
Yes, because I think essentially Jason's like opening up to her kind of toward the end and essentially saying like this is potentially why, or he's trying to, I think, justify why the other Jason went into his world, and he kind of figures out that, yeah, he wanted to not only be with Daniela, but then be in a world where his son was alive.
Right. My goal was to watch Tech Jason stand and deliver and teach kids how to be great titans of industry. He quits on day 2. I didn't see this coming. I didn't like it. It was reminiscent of Michael Scott at business school, right?
Yeah, 100%. Like, yeah, pull out a piece of paper. I don't have paper. You fail. Like, just telling everybody that they fail. So I'm assuming what Michael Scott would do.
So does Tech Jason's world not have laptops? He did all that science on legal pads and paper? Is that what?
It does seem odd. Like, it also seems odd that not a single kid in that classroom would at least have like a 3-ring binder or some form of paper.
Sure. I mean, that class does seem like the most undisciplined students in the world. So I do blame Teacher Jason for setting a low bar, but also Tech Jason should know people use computers. Write this down. Click, 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 click.
Don't miss out on the last few weeks of football action with Prize Picks, the best place to win cash while watching the playoffs. The app is simple. Pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. Download the Prize Picks Daily Fantasy Sports app today and use code FIELD and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code FIELD on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks. Run your game. Must be present in certain states. Visit prizepicks.com for restrictions and details.
After the soft quitting of Tech Jason, we're back with Teacher Jason and Amanda in the hallway, and they are continuing to open doors because you can, under the same drug trip, open multiple doors. That's what we discovered. It doesn't cost them a vial of blue goo. Oh, I said it. For every
What was it called?
door
Fairy
opening.
dust or I already forgot.
Lavender Fairy. Lavender Fairy. You don't pretend like
liked-
you don't know the Satvia or whatever type of marijuana. Sorry, I lost the thread. Go ahead.
No, I liked the idea of, because like when they first went in and you saw that like backpack, you knew, okay, they've got a limited supply, but the thought would be, okay, they can only go to 25 worlds. Like, that is it, because they would have, like, what they brought in 50, so they got 25 apiece. But the idea that they were able to open up, like, multiple per trip, and I guess it would last, like, an hour or something, I thought was kind of cool, and it was a good way to move the story forward.
Right. But if you use it if you carve out an apple and you use Lavender Fairy through an apple, then it lasts longer.
Filters it out.
That's what I've been told. Yeah. Amanda gets like frustrated and runs away. Is this the part where she runs into the snow? Kind of a little bit. She runs down the corridor at one point. He's like, we should stick together. And then
I think she's losing it, and we'll get to it a little bit later. Like, as the psychiatrist or psychologist that was supposed to set up these people to like not freak out in the box, this is like the third thing she does when she's in this box is just freak out.
Oh, Tom, none of us will know how we will handle the corridor or Lavender Fairy until we're there. So I'm trying not to judge Amanda. Do they then go out and they witness? This is then where they go out and they witness Amanda getting shot by Dawn, right? They like go out.
Yes, they go out. They had the conversation about it. And this was, I thought, a cool way to do it because it kind of plays that hint of whatever you're kind of subconsciously thinking or consciously thinking as you open the door is the world that will appear. So they had just had a conversation about like going back to this world and like what if we didn't make it or something like that. And then the very next door they open is this exact same situation where they potentially left like a little bit later. Dawn and Leighton caught up to her. And Dawn is still a fantastic shot and ends up killing Amanda right there.
Warning shot right between the eyes. So we don't know if Amanda's dead once again. So my spouse picked up on this. She's like, oh, they just talked about this and then it happened in the world so that they can control it. And then I said, please don't talk during the show because we're trying to take notes. And Tom and I have to podcast about this. And
as you typed it into your computer, yeah.
Right. And now we're really not talking. We're not talking during the show, and we're not talking when we're not walking during a show. So that's what this show's doing to my marriage. Amanda runs out into the snow. This is like, of all the world, I mean, there's a world where he opens the door and there's like a creepy creature, like kind of like moving in the shadow, which is real rough. I would have run into that world before I ran into Blizzard World because don't do well with snow, Tom. And this looked miserable. And it's Chicago. What an idiot. I'm sorry. We shouldn't judge Amanda. Man, that turned real quick on Amanda. I don't know. This seemed strange. They find a house buried in snow. Obviously, global warming doesn't exist in this world, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, global freezing. So definitely not real. I like how Jason is going through the house, and we get this little nod to like Schrodinger's cat here, where he sees like a dead cat as he's walking around through the house. I wouldn't be surprised if like future episodes will get, or another universe will get a live cat, just to kind of keep playing at this concept of live and dead cats inside of this box.
Oh, I thought you were going to say they were going to do a clever thing where in every world you have to look for the dead cat, which seems sad. But you've always been pro animal abuse in TV shows and movies, like that episode of Ted Lasso where they killed that dog with a soccer ball. Anyways, let's move on. Tom, this show constantly talks about dead cats and Schrodinger cat. Didn't even think about it. I was just like, oh, that's weird. They put a dead house cat. I guess no one's living in that house. So good on you. I feel like a big idiot. Cut from.
That's what I'm here for, buddy.
Yeah, for making me
to make you look like an
idiot.
idiot,
Yes.
not to call things out in the podcast.
Yes, thank you. So we are back with Tech Jason in his world, and he goes to visit. He's done teaching, so he doesn't have any more of that sweet teacher's money. So now he has gone to find Leighton in his world. And Leighton is in purple PJs. He's a party animal, and I guess they have a conversation about he already had a falling out business wise with Ryan Holder, which is interesting because I thought Ryan, who got that award and offered Teacher Jason the job, was like, "Hey, Leighton's my like financier, my business partner in this," but it sounds like they've already had a falling out.
No, I think. I'm not know for sure, but I think that Ryan in this universe is essentially like Leighton is paying and funding his ventures after he won the Pava Prize or Pavia Prize, whatever it is. So I think some of Tech Jason's like motivation here is not only like money, but also to potentially like pull the funding from Ryan. Like I wonder if some of that is like a little bit like because Leighton says, "Hey, I don't have money to invest. I'm already have it tied up somewhere else." So maybe if he could take this money from Leighton, he can pull that money away from Ryan. And be
interesting. You're thinking inside and outside the box. I'm just confused, wondering why there's so many dead house cats. But you're
I'm in a Tesseract, buddy. You're in a box.
Ooh, Tesseract. I don't like that term. So confusing.
But again, I just do want to call out like the actor. I didn't write his name down. Apologies, but he's just so good. Like he played a completely different version of Leighton, and I know all the other actors are kind of doing the same. But I just loved how he portrayed this guy of like kind of a trust fund kid. He's a dropout. He's just living his life quarter mile at a time. It's great.
But there is something about when he is this version of Leighton that I'm a little bit weary of. I'm like, what game is he playing? Like, is he really just gonna like work with him, and then he's also he really likes drugs, and so he gets to play that version of it. I don't know. I'm with you. I'm interested in this version of Leighton. I wrote down that Amanda tells a story about being stranded out in a whiteout, and I was like, cool, fast forward. I don't know. This is supposed to make me like care about that character. I already care about that character. I don't like every time you're in a blizzard, you shouldn't have to tell another blizzard story. You know, you should tell like a warm weather story. She's like, one time I was stranded on a tropical island, and he's like, go on. Like that makes more sense to me.
This essentially sets it all up here about why this world appeared, right? Like she was isolated, she felt trapped, she felt helpless, and she remembers this childhood memory of them being like frozen in the tundra of Argentina or something like that. So that explains essentially this world that we're in, which I appreciated because from reading the outline here, it looks like your wife picked this up kind of pretty quick, like the concept of how to open these doors.
Yeah, and based on how I just yada-yada'd that whiteout story, I'm still not getting it. So maybe I should call her in here, and she should do the rest of this one. But yeah, she definitely called it.
Well, I'll give her 37 internet points. I appreciate that. I did
she'll
not pick
spend them
up.
at Target.com.
But so, okay, I want to go through this a little bit because now that we have this concept of, okay, whatever in your conscious as you're opening the door is potentially what's going to appear. Like that's the multiverse you're going to create. So we found out how Amanda kind of created this frozen tundra world. I think Jason later on, like he was like I think as he's opening the doors, he's trying to like logically rationalize how the math or how the science works. And I think that's where we get the box where it's like there's no atmosphere. The sun is like right over the Sears Tower or whatever it's called now. And that was very much Three Body Problem style. So I definitely got those same vibes. I think at one point he mentions that like their priority needs to be food and water. And then the next door he opens up, it's like Water World where there's like a huge wave going to come at him.
Right.
So that's kind of cool. I think at one point Amanda kind of mentions, hey, there's no logic to this. They open the door, they see like a dirt and tree roots. There's one where I think I'm quite certain like Jason opens the door and he starts like smelling and sniffing and it smells really bad. Then he closes it immediately. So I'm assuming he probably passed gas right before opening that door. Would be my guess. I could be wrong.
You gotta, subtitles will help solve that mystery. You just have to, just have to read.
But you did mention the creepy monster, which I thought was great. And I don't know, maybe it's like as they're opening it up, they're thinking of like childhood fears or something. I don't know what it was. My first inclination is I saw it move in the background. I'm like, oh, is this the dinosaur world that Julian called?
Yeah. Yeah,
which would have been cool.
Out of the darkness comes a dinosaur in the shape of a chicken nugget, and it's like Dino Nugget world. Yeah, because he's hungry, and he wants some Dino Nuggies. That's what happens.
Great.
Yeah, I didn't go through each world, but upon you and my spouse explaining it to me, it's making a lot more sense. But I don't know. The idea of controlling that seems to be like very difficult. I would struggle with it. I would just think of that scene in Dumb and Dumber where the models pull up in the bus. I would think of that. I'd open the door and they'd be like, hey, do you want to join our bus and go to Hawaii? And I'd close the door. I'd be like, you can't drive to Hawaii. That world has no water. And then I'd move to the next door, just like Lloyd. Anyways, so they do get into it in this episode and the next episodes about the control, and I have some questions about that. And I guess that's where Amanda comes into this, is like, you've got to like, she's the one that can help people clear their mind. And this also leads to Leighton and Jason are now, because we are now with Tech Jason and Leighton. They have come to the box, and he is doing a demonstration for Leighton. And he is having someone untested clear their mind so they can go into that world. That seems wildly irresponsible to me. No?
Yeah. No, I completely agree. He kind of tells him, hey, don't think about anything. It's like you tell me not to think about something, I'm going to start thinking about something.
World of Legos. I'm sorry, world of Lego. Ego Legos in your world. So, and they do cut through that one, because I think the next time we see them, Leighton comes out and he's like, that was amazing. My grandfather was alive. I'd give up everything to go back to that life. So I wonder if they shot that and they just decided to cut it for time. But we do understand now that that Leighton can go to a world that he is super jazzed about.
Mm-hmm. And he's like all in on it too, right? Like he says he's going to give up his world in a heartbeat, like just like he did in the Prime world where Leighton jumps in the box to try to chase Amanda and Teacher Jason. He's also doing the same, or he's also doing the same in this other world, because he just doesn't feel like he has anything. He has all the money, he's got all the drugs, but he still doesn't feel like he has anything in that world and is willing to just drop it all at the drop of a hat.
Right. So I'm interested to see how that deal plays out. Let's go back to Snow World, where the snow is CGI and it looks really dumb, and I just could not get past how dumb this was. I was like, really? Like, CGI is expensive. Snow is cheap. In fact, in some places it's free. Like, what are we doing here, people? Why are we like... it took me out of it completely. I was like, this snow looks so weird. And granted, as someone who lives in Arizona, maybe that's what snow looks like. I don't know, to be honest. Maybe they were doing it in snow and it wasn't CGI, but it looked fake to me. That's all I'm saying.
The snow was fine. It was like when they were like actively pushing through the snow, that's where it just...
Yeah,
it was,
and they were walking the whole time, like stabbing into the ground, Tom. So yes, you're right. Only when they were moving, only when they were pushing, which is the whole scene. Yes.
I do appreciate how when they find it, like they unbury the top of it and like, oh, good, we found it. That's going to take you a very long time to unbury. And you don't know what side that you need to be unburying. I hope it's like the fourth side and they finally found the door.
Right.
But we do get a little bit of a nugget here, right? Because we heard it in like episode 2, I think, that the box gives off of a magnetic field. So she was able to kind of find that with the compass being all broken. And then we do confirm that this box stays in the same geographical location. So like same GPS coordinates in Chicago.
Never leaving Chicago, no matter what happens, whether or not it's surrounded by dino nuggies or snow, always in Chicago.
Yep.
We're cut to the Max's tree heart-wrenching story, which both Jasons are missing. Did not like this. I want this show to be less emotional stakes. Don't want to feel sad. Just want to feel like the CGI snow's dumb. Like, I don't know. I understand what they're doing.
Yeah, it's tough to watch for sure. But I mean, I think it's done incredibly well and just adds, again, another layer of kind of drama between Daniela and like Tech Jason. Now he's not there. He just doesn't understand like the severity of not being there for his family in this moment for like the birthday. Like at the very end, he's like buying the kid a car and saying I've got investment, but not being there for his family in this moment. It's huge, and it's just tearing them more apart. But I also feel like kind of what they're potentially setting up here is later for Daniela to learn about the box and her trying to rationalize finding a world where Max is alive too, right? Are you kind of getting that vibe? I feel like they're kind of maybe laying that down where she's going to be interested enough to maybe step into the box.
I don't know. I don't feel like Daniela can get anywhere near the box without getting shot between the eyes. So I don't know if Daniela's doing much.
Depends where Dawn is.
Much box piloting, as they like to call it. I felt the questions I had were more like, okay, is this where the trouble stems in the relationship between teacher Jason and Daniela, because they hinted at her unhappiness and like how things can be rocky. I mean, obviously this is not something you get over, but like, is this the prevalent issue? Is it money problems? I'm interested in their human relationship. And so I did not give thought to whether or not Daniela was going to become an ace box pilot, but maybe she will. Who knows?
Yeah.
We have teacher Jason telling Amanda how tech Jason swapped him, and kind of, I don't know, did you feel like they did some mental gymnastics here to get him to the point of like he must have just regretted like that, he must have regretted that decision to go after his work rather than having a family? That's why he did it. That's why he switched us. Or is he like bouncing that off of Amanda because she knows tech Jason well? Because there's a couple of times where Amanda's like, no, he's not that like vicious. Right. He's not like evil. He would have done it he would have thought he was doing you a favor. Which are conversations you and I have had about this. So I find it interesting that the show is telling us at this point, like, hey, he's not evil. He thought he was doing something nice for you. But
yeah, it is tough because I think like this episode, I mean, I'm not going to call the guy evil, but certainly the things he's doing is leading that direction, and he can justify it however he wants. But I think even the way he's manipulating Leighton here to kind of try to do his bidding or take his money in some form or fashion, I'm interested to see how he, and if we get like Ryan back into the picture, because I like him as a character and as like a friend, because we really don't have any other friends that Jason has been seemingly with outside of like the dinner party and that kind of thing. So yeah, I don't know. In terms of this conversation, I think it is a little bit of both. It's having Amanda give us a little bit more about tech Jason and his background, but then also now they're trying to essentially rationalize, or is this where he figures it out that what you think about in the box could potentially take you there, or that was when she was telling the snow story?
That was the snow story.
Okay.
That was the snow story. The snow story. Try saying that a lot of times fast. We have Charlie and Danielle in the kitchen. These guys love to cook. They're a family that cooks. Charlie's like, hey, have you noticed that Dad's off? Did he make you run any red lights recently? And Danielle is like, no. And then they're talking about him, and who is standing 5 feet from them very silently, as one does. But tech Jason, he's in the room. He snuck through that door. He's very sneaky. Guess what he gets, Charlie? He gets him a sweet car. When they opened the door and a car appeared, Tom, did you have a vision in your mind of what type of car he was going to have?
I would have guessed like some sort of like sports car or truck for a kid. Not a, I mean, what does it look like to you?
Well, I thought it was going to be like a Mustang or like kind of a sweet car. Instead, he got him like a Kia Sorento, like a crossover that it's like, hey, Charlie, have you been married for 10 years and are you expecting your second child? Guess what we got you? Like, I don't know. It was, I'm sure they're lovely cars. I don't want to disparage our Kia sponsors, but.
Listen, the Sorento is the Cadillac of Kias, so.
Yeah, literally, this is how deep into it I was. When he walked over to that car, I was like, no. Jason's going to be like, no, son, not that one, and then point to like a Corvette. But no, it is the crossover. So I'm hoping Dark Matter got some sponsorship money from whoever made that car. But this is where we get the "you don't have to worry about money anymore" speech, which, just as a spouse, always be wary of this conversation when it comes out of nowhere. You're either married to a bank robber, a guy that knows how to time travel, or a counterfeiter, I guess would be your three options at that point.
Well, and I mean, we've already seen a lot of discontent, I think, essentially between Tech Jason and Daniela. Daniela knows just something's up, but I mean, there's 3 big truth bombs get thrown onto her about, oh yeah, I quit my job. Oh, I just spent all this money and bought a car. And oh yeah, we don't have to worry about money. It's like she doesn't know what to think right now. And I appreciate the show kind of not just making them a perfect couple immediately. Like, this is not the Jason that she knows.
What if he was then like, listen, you don't have to worry about money. There's this company called GameStop, and all these people shorted them, and I bought it 300, and I've got diamond hands. What if he like went deep into that? Or he was like, listen, I'm a part of a program where I get 9 people to sell these cleaning supplies. They get 9 people to sell these cleaning supplies, and we're millionaires. It would be great if it was just a pyramid scheme instead of him, I guess, stealing money from or getting money from his rich friend.
Listen, he had a company called Velocity. What if you turn that V upside down? That makes a pyramid, my friend.
Okay, I was like, velocity? What does velocity mean? I'm so confused. But
A V is just a pyramid scheme upside down.
That's right. Thank you, Jim Halpert. All right. Speaking of rich friends that we steal money from, this episode ends with, I'm assuming CEO Layton is being chased by raptors down the corridor. He's like
Yes.
bleeding from 8 different places. He literally looks like, if this was a scene cut from like the 3rd or 4th Jurassic Park, I wouldn't be surprised. It was
Yes, 100%. This is the Jurassic Park Chicagoverse.
nice. They let
Now,
the
what's your take on this? Like, if this is and I like how it finishes, him essentially opening up this sand wasteland world, and then it just kind of cuts. I think they got a good like music needle drop too. That was really good. But if they're all essentially using the same box, do you think if they're in the same box at the same time and they take the drugs, could they actually run into each other, or is each box like a different person's experience?
From what I understand, the corridor is happening in the mind. So, which makes it a little bit confusing because Amanda and Jason experience it at the same time because they're in the box at the same time. But I think if you get into that box at a different time, although don't we have one where they can hear him shouting down the corridor? Or is that just because he's shouting outside the box? I don't know. My understanding is the physical box means less than what's going on in your mind, and the corridor is in your mind. But I think I've proven throughout this podcast that this show is confusing for me because none of it's in the good book, so I don't have anywhere to turn for answers. I have 2 comments. One, we have Amanda talking about she's like the psychologist of this team and she's supposed to like prepare them. She talks earlier about like, oh, I'm the one that freaked out, but I was the one. So it feels like they knew this stuff was going to, like, clearing your mind was going to be important, like breathing deep, whatever it is else you do. Typically they just tell you to breathe deep in these shows. I don't know. I've never cleared my mind once. I don't want to like lose what's up there. So it feels like all of them are very surprised that they're opening doors and getting the crap kicked out of them. Like Layton literally looks like he's been opening doors. Him and Jason, or is it because Teacher Jason was never a part of any of this training, so he doesn't know what he's doing, so it's okay that he's opening doors willy-nilly? But it just feels like for scientists, we're not doing a lot of scientific like examination. We're just like a 6-year-old kid in a hallway with a bunch of doors. We're just opening them and slamming them, right?
Yeah, it's definitely trial and error. I mean, he tries to science it in the beginning, doesn't get very far. I'm with you. I don't really understand what Amanda was like really prepping him for, because how could you prep somebody for something you really don't know anything about? I guess the idea of just staying calm in wild situations is helpful. But again, she struggled to heat her own device there.
Right. All right. So anything we missed in episode 4 that you want to talk about? Because I am ready to move on to the delectable episode 5. I will say 4, like, I felt like we were moving at a pretty good clip. I think I complained that 3 didn't answer anything for me, but 3 really prepped for 4, and 4 was like, hey, this is what we're going to be dealing with. And it is pretty fun to like have a show. It's almost like a Doctor Who, which I've never watched a single episode of, or any one of those shows like old Star Trek, where they find themselves in a different world dealing with a different challenge. Like, that's a formula that just kind of works. I know we're just getting this in snippets, but I do enjoy, like, what's behind door number 3? Like, that's why these game shows work, you know? So it is kind of fun.
It is fun. And again, I like that we didn't have to wait 4 or 5 episodes for them to figure out some sort of, like, mechanism to control the box. Like, we know they don't know it probably for sure or how to control it with any sort of certainty, but I like how we got a handful of those answers pretty quickly.
I mean, what if he like opened it and it was just like a bunch of naked people, and then he like closed it slowly, and Amanda's like, "What were you thinking about?" He's like, "Nothing, nothing at all. Let's move to the next door." And then it's just like he opens it, and it's just piles of green jello, and she's like, "Green jello again, huh?" And which doesn't make sense because lime jello is the worst. So, all right, we're gonna leave the episode 4 corridor and go on to episode 5. You can reach out to us at teambingepodcast@gmail.com. We love hearing from random people. Once again, especially when there's some sort of weird spam, like trying to steal our bank account stuff. That's always the best. But if we miss something, if you have questions or comments, we really don't have a lot going on in our lives. So we'd love to hear from you. Tom, we have MySpace?
Yep, MySpace and Bumble. I don't know
Okay.
what Bumble is.
Bumble.
Twitter.
I think
Is Bumble
Bumble is a
dating app?
dating app for bees, actually. So,
Twitter and Instagram at Team Binge or at Team Binge Podcast. So reach out to us there if you want and talk to or continue the conversation. If you enjoy our show, you can always rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. We would appreciate it. So yeah, let's jump to episode 5, my friend.
all right. For Team Binge and Dark Matter, I have been Julian.
And I have been Tom Prime. Till next time, everybody.
I don't like that. I don't like that at all.